Hey y'all, I want to talk to you about Chicago deep dish pizza. And let's make the crust first, because this is going to be a process, different stages. So I want to make the crust to show you how we do that. I'm going to start by turning on my hot water at the faucet. We have a whole house purifier, so I don't have to worry about chlorine or anything. I can get my pretty healthy tap water and use that because it's been purified. So I've got that going, and I want to get my water to about 110 degrees. I'll talk to you about that. Got my big bowl. This came from Lehman's years ago. Lehman's is in Ohio, near where my family lives, and so I got my big old bowl here. Now, I'm going to combine 1.5 cups of hot tap water. All right, I've got 1.5 cups. Now, I've learned, I can tell by touching it, it's about 110. Okay, so I'm going to pour this in here. I'm going to pour a teaspoon of sugar. This is my pure cane sugar, and a teaspoon of yeast. Let's get a spoon, just stir that up and let that proof or bloom. So we're just going to let that sit there for about 5 minutes. Okay, while this is working, doing its thing, I want to talk to you about my ingredients. I get yeast by the bulk food place, my bulk food co-op. I hope one day to get to the point where I don't need yeast and I'm using sourdough, which is freshly caught in the air yeast. So, but for now, this is what I use. I keep that in the freezer. I'm using 4 cups of flour. 3 cups is the organic sprouted whole wheat flour that I was so glad to recently find at my bulk food co-op. I'm a member of 2 bulk food co-ops. Plus I get herbs and things from the Amish bulk food store in Ohio when I go there. So I've got 3 cups of this, and then 1 cup of the my all-purpose white flour, unbleached, everything. This is as natural as you can get buying at the store. It's kind of like a King Arthur unbleached flour, except it's not King Arthur brand, but you're probably familiar with that. I've got the 1 teaspoon of sugar I've already used in here is the pure organic cane sugar. Then I've got my Himalayan sea salt. This is Redmond's real salt, and I've got a teaspoon of that we'll use in a few minutes. Okay, and then for the oil, it calls for, the method or recipe calls for olive oil, but I do try not to cook with olive oil. I do try to use coconut oil or MCT oil. I'm using this MCT oil. Now, this is expensive, but I did choose to use it in this simply because I didn't want to melt down the coconut oil for this. I wanted to have this ready. So about 1/2 cup of MCT oil that we will use. Then we will we'll make the dough and let this set for about 1.5 hours to rise. It's going to make 2 Chicago style deep dish pizzas. Now, I'm not from Chicago. I've only visited that wonderful town once, and it was a great visit. But I do love food, and I know what's good and what's not, and this is good pizza. So I don't claim to be an expert, but I do claim to know what I like, and we like this recipe. I don't make it a whole lot because it does take time. And so this is Christmas week still. This is the week between Christmas and New Year's when we do things that we don't normally do because we have extra time. So our yeast is still going strong. You want to see the yeast? It's still working and doing its thing. And so we'll let it sit there a little while longer. Now, I did tell you that I've learned through the years I don't have to take the temperature of water. When it says 110 degrees, I don't take the temperature of it. I just know by feeling. So it's not hot, but very warm to my finger. So if you're a new cook, you can learn this by using a thermometer and taking the temperature, and then, you know, feel it, and then over the years you're going to know what 110 degrees is on water. All right, so we're going to let that set a little bit longer. Okay, our yeast is ready. It has bloomed, you can see that. And we're going to add the flour, oil, and salt. And we're just going to mix it together. So I've got, let's see, I've got the 3 cups of the organic sprouted whole wheat flour. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of that and just stir. And this is going to be, you know, a chewier crust than if you just use all the white flour. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the salt and more of the sprouted wheat flour. A little bit at a time, stirring that. I'm going to add some of the white flour, the unbleached white flour. All right, I'm going to get in here and mix it with my hands. I'm going to take this spoon ring off because I don't want to dig it out of there. Okay, now let's see here. Y'all see that? And actually, I think it can handle a little bit more flour. There we go, just keep turning. All right, about mixed up here. Let's knead it just a little bit. Let's knead it on our clean countertop. All right, it's a little bit sticky, smooth. I always put a towel under my bowls when I'm using bowls so they don't slide around unless I want them to. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good, doesn't it? There's our dough. So I'm going to get this pan, or bowl rather, greasy. And put this in here. Turn it. All right, and I'm going to let it sit there. I'm going to put it in a warm place in the house and let it sit there for about an hour and a half, and let's see what happens after then. Okay, we've got our fire going. We're going to make our sauce next. And I'm using the same skillet, same cast iron pan that Mr. Patient cooked our sausage in a while ago. So he's got this sausage. This is from our CSA, our meat co-op, grass-fed, healthy sausage. So he cooked that in the pan, and I'm just using the same pan. I just took the sausage out, and I didn't clean it because there's no point in that. So I've got about 2 tablespoons of coconut oil that I'm melting. All right, and I'm going to add our seeds and herbs first. Now you can use garlic, chopped garlic, but like I said in another video, I don't have one of those garlic crushers or squeezers or whatever they're called. And tonight I just opted to go with garlic powder instead of garlic because I didn't want to have to chop it. So if we were using chopped garlic, we would put it in here in a few minutes. So I'm just heating this oil on medium-high. I don't use olive oil when I'm cooking. I do try to use, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, coconut oil or MCT oil. I don't use vegetable oil at all. Sometimes peanut oil, but for this is coconut oil. All right, so we're just letting this melt, and I'll tell you what we're going to put in. So we've got our coconut oil, and we're going to add 2 tablespoons of basil. approximately. 1 tablespoon of oregano. I've got about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of red chili pepper flakes, cayenne pepper flakes, and fennel seed. I think this is what makes it. I think this is what makes the flavor. This is what, to me, makes it Chicago deep dish, other than the deep dish crust. But this fennel seed makes it. And also, we've got another video that we made a long time ago talking about a mixture that you can chew on, and it's actually, my Amish friends use this mixture. You can chew on if your stomach's upset. It's fennel and some other things. So fennel's really good for you, and it's a distinct flavor, but I love it in this. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn this down to right below medium, and I'm going to add the seeds I just mentioned. So I've got the chili pepper flakes, the fennel seeds, the basil, the oregano. Okay, I'm just going to stir that around just for, I don't know, a few seconds here. Just kind of bring out the flavor of those seeds. I'm not going to burn it. Just leave it down low. Okay, then I'm going to add, and like I said, this is where you would add your garlic if you're doing the fresh chopped garlic. Then I'm going to add some fresh ground black pepper, which amounts to about, I don't know, 1/2 teaspoon or so. About 1/2 teaspoon of salt, Redmond's sea salt, or Redmond's real salt. And then I've got my garlic powder, because I didn't want to cut garlic. All right, and then one more thing I add. This is Italian seasoning, and this is kind of a repeat. It does have basil, it does have oregano, but it's also got marjoram and rosemary, and I love this stuff. So, all right, let's get this stirred up, because the garlic powder's gonna burn if I don't. Okay, then I'm gonna add a can of 28. See how I'm pouring it on here to keep it from splattering? Ouch! Hot. It didn't splatter, but the heat was hot. Okay, pouring it on my spatula so it doesn't splatter on me. It's a 28-ounce can of chopped tomatoes. You can use home canned rather. Okay. Then, this is super easy. It really takes longer to get everything together than it does to mix this up. Tablespoon of red wine. This really makes a difference too. I don't know if you can use red cooking wine. I've never tried that, so I can't recommend that or not. And then about 1 teaspoon of sugar. This is my organic pure cane sugar. And that's it. And we're gonna let this cook. We're gonna let it simmer. This is not the right tool I need. I'm actually gonna get a whisk. I like to use a whisk. So we're gonna let this simmer. Don't want it to simmer too fast. It'll pop everywhere. So I'm gonna have it on low, and about, I don't know, really you want it to thicken. You want it to thicken. So really, sometimes it takes 20-25 minutes maybe. And then after that, we're gonna let it cool completely. So that's what we're gonna do. Just gonna let it simmer, stir it every now and then, make sure it's not popping all over my kitchen. And then we'll come back and see what happens, what it looks like, tastes like.
Non più frai quei penachini, quel cappello, quella chioma, quell'aria brillante.